Welcome to the Rebels and Rituals podcast with me, Daisy Guy. Today's episode is actually quite close to my heart, as it's with my sister-in-law, Meeta. Meeta became a widow very young. She was only 30 when she lost her husband. What followed wasn't just grief. It was the brave, quiet work of learning how to live again. This conversation is about love, loss, identity, and the slow return of light after darkness. Meeta speaks honestly of strength and showing what it means to rebuild yourself after losing who you were. Let's get into it. Meeta, welcome to the Rebels and Rituals podcast.
Thank you for having me so early in the morning.
It's not early in my morning. This is our first virtual podcast, so thank you for being my guinea pig in doing this.
Not a problem.
So the first question I ask all my guests is, tell me how you grew up.
So typical, England in the 90s, my parents were immigrated from India. We were growing up in England, strict parents. You can't go out, you can't do this, you can't have boyfriends, So just the typical kind of, they were conforming to their rules. We were trying to sort of be westernized, but also, try to be Indian but Western, and those kind of lacking of communication all the time, because parents don't really communicate with their kids at that sort of time of back in the day. So a lot of the times we would always be kind of scared of eavesdropping in our parents, like, did we get into trouble for something, or but just typical, like, go to school, get your degrees, do well, but no communicating with us, like kind of getting
I get it, because immigrant parents back in the day, especially earlier in their time of immigration, like before they were fully settled in, were just in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
Like their job was to provide, and as kids we were just supposed to know what we were supposed to do.
Right. But also kind of be Indian, but also all our friends were doing stuff and we wanted to do the same things. Yeah. But we, for us to get out of the house, we would have to make up like a million stories and, have backup plans. And this is the friend I'm going with, and this is how we're going to get there and get back. And I guess they were a little bit more stricter with me because I was the only girl. The boys had a little bit more freedom and, didn't always have to tell them where they were going. But for us girls, it was, you have to tell us where you are, who you're going with, how long you're going to be back by 11, So there was a lot of stuff that we would have to lie about, just because, we'd have to want to get out of the house and do stuff with our friends. And, I think that they also found it hard to communicate because they didn't really know how. So I always said to myself that I don't want to do that with my own kids. I want to be able to be open and communicative and talk about things. And there was time, even when I got my period, like I told my mom and it was just like, oh, so I remember my dad sitting me down and saying, oh, this is what happens and we're here for you. And yeah, it was really weird because he was a bit more open than my mom was. She was a bit more sort of reserved about things like that, never told me about sex, never told me about periods. And I used to hear it from a girl from school, a gaudy girlfriend whose mom was telling her everything, and then she'd come to school and tell me. So I already knew everything, but I never told them I knew. So it was just, it was very shielded. And, I always said to myself, I'm not going to do this with my kids. I want them to have open communication and talk to me about everything and tell me, even if they're going to get into trouble, just tell me, because I can be there to help you and guide you and, back you up if I need to. You're probably still going to get into trouble, but, at least tell me. So it's a lot better with my kids than I always, but now I think my parents are a little bit more open with me because I'm older and have been through stuff. And, now I could tell my mom anything and she's just like, all right, whatever. So they've evolved over time, right?
I'm not going to call you out on your age, but I'm hoping by this age you can talk to your mom about it.
Yeah, I do. I tell her everything now. And sometimes she's a bit shocked and she'll be like, oh God, don't tell me this. I don't want to know. But a lot better now after I've grown up and, it's not as dangerous.
One of the things that you, I guess, kind of had to hide from your parents was dating your husband.
God, yeah. Yes, yeah. So we met at a wedding, and it was like, it wasn't love at first sight or anything. We just started sort of, I was at this wedding. There was a bunch of us that was kind of the same age, and we sort of went out together. And after the functions, we'd hit a bar or a club, and kind of over that week of being there, things kind of evolved between us. And we decided, well, I thought it was going to just be a summer fling, and we'll go back to our lives. He lives in New York, I live in London. It's not really going to go anywhere. But as things kind of slowly started progressing, and each of us made a trip here and there, and we just decided one day, I was like, I don't want to be with anyone else. And he said, I don't want to be with anyone else. And so, do you want to just get married then? And I'm like, sure. So that was basically the proposal. There's no like romantic, oh, let me take you on a boat and do a proposal and all that stuff. But I think he was one of my bestest friends in the whole world. We loved each other unconditionally. We could talk to each other about anything and everything. We did everything together. We wouldn't even do groceries without, by ourselves. We would always go together to do everything. And so we had moved from, he had been living in New York. I moved to New York for a year. And it was really exciting because, my mother-in-law didn't have any daughters. She was like, oh, I want to do so many things with you. And on the flip side, his parents were a little bit more stricter than mine. So it was like, we wanted to go out on a Saturday night, and they would be like, well, what time are you going to be back? And he would say, like, just tell them we're going bowling. And I'm like, do your parents really believe that we're going bowling till 3 o'clock in the morning? That's like ridiculous to me. But he was like, yeah, they'll believe anything. So had to sort of adapt to, now I'm in a more of an Indian household, and there was a big family, and, learning how to cook, learning how to go to all their family functions and friends functions, and, being that typical daughter-in-law. But I had a lot of fun with her. She was kind of a lot younger. She was in her 50s when we got married. So she was really kind of like, let's do this together. Let's go shopping together. Let's do it. So she was like really excited to have a girl in the house.
Yeah.
But still kind of confiding to the rules of being respectful to your elders, sitting with the grandma, going to the gurdwara, making roti and da-da-da. So that, because my parents were so strict and I'd grown up in that kind of environment, it was an easy transition for me. But the Western was still in there. I wanted to go out. I wanted to, let's get dressed up. So we always made it a thing that we would definitely have date night without the kids, without, got the nanny to babysit. We would do our date night because we wanted to kind of just, keep that sort of going and our sort of spark alive, So we moved to Canada, and it was just, trying to get your life settled in a new country. We had my son, which was great. We then had my daughter. We were, both having really good jobs. We went and opened a business. So things were like really good. I'm talking like 2.4 children, like the whole house, but just life's on track. And I had literally just turned 30 at that point, and then everything was just falling into place and things was good. And we were still in love and still kind of doing all these things together, and making couple friends and doing things with our friends, and some of his family was beginning to move to Canada, so we had a little bit of a family thing going on as well. And then one day things went completely, did a 180.
So I guess for context for the audience, you and I are related. I'm married to your cousin. And so I guess in the Indian job titles, you are my sister-in-law. But I only know this story, your story, like third hand. Like I've never heard your story from you. And
Right.
so what I know of that time was that your husband, Baba, was then in the hospital for a significant amount of time. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but did they know what he had, or you weren't sure, or it was like a very quick deterioration? But it's up to you if you want to talk about that.
No,
Yeah.
so it was one day he kept kind of going into the other room to sleep, and I used to say, like, we're not that couple, what's going on? And he said, I feel like something's crawling up my back. I don't know what it is. I feel like something's crawling up my back. And he's like, I don't want to disturb you because we both got to go to work in the morning and I'll just sleep in the other room. And I was like, this isn't like, it was going on for a little while, and to a point where he couldn't even open the tap to brush his teeth. And his coordination had gone. He was playing with Gia, my daughter, and he fell on the floor. And he's like, I feel like I'm the most sober drunk person right now. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And he was just such a nice, down to earth guy that everybody liked him. So he went through some weird emotions where one time he'd be like crying and then laughing, and then it was just really weird. So anyway, we took him to the doctors, and they said just take him to the hospital. He need get him a brain scan.
Okay.
So from that scan, they realized that he had lesions on his brain, lesions that kind of really correlate with MS, multiple sclerosis. But they said, well, his lesions are doubling every 24 hours, so that's not something we've seen before. And they kept saying, it's a form of MS, but it's not really, it shouldn't be, what he's getting to now, people get to in 20 years. We're not understanding what it is. They had doctors coming from downtown St. Michael's, having a look at him and looking at his, scans and his MRIs. And meanwhile, he is deteriorating over the course of like 6 days. He went from kind of trying to communicate to seizures, and those seizures, they had to induce him into a coma just because they had to calm the brain down.
Oh, wow.
So, and then at that point they said, we don't know what to give him, because if you give him something wrong, because we don't know what it is, we could do more harm than good.
Right.
So they ended up, when he went into intensive care, they ended up giving him everything. They gave him antibiotics, they gave him steroids, they gave him like everything under the sun to see if, they could stop this rapid growth of these lesions. And I'm talking, so, if your brain has a train track, the train track in the middle is broken because the myelin in your nerves is opening and damaging, and it's damaging the nerves. So if I said squeeze my hand, he didn't know how to do that. The induced coma, that lasted about 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So we were trying to talk to him, and and it was really hard because I didn't have a last conversation. It was just 1 minute he's seizuring and then he's in intensive care, and then we never really had that kind of, what's going on. And he said to me at one point, he said, what's wrong with me? And I said, nothing, you're fine. Like, you'll be fine. I think that was the last thing we said to each other. Wow. And that really sort of, didn't let me have that closure of,
right.
I didn't really get to say anything to him, like, because we just kept thinking, oh, he's going to get better and come home. Whatever this is, it's going to get fixed. I didn't think this was the end of my love story. Like,
right.
We were unconditionally in love. To even, at 6-7 years of marriage and 2 kids, and people used to say to me, he was like, he was he was just deeply in love with you. He talked about you more than he talked about his own kids. Like, so it was like really, it was like there was no end to that chapter. Like, I didn't have the last sort of conversation that I wanted, and it, then he came out of intensive care, but at that point he was a complete vegetable. Like, he didn't know, he couldn't focus, he couldn't hold my hand, he couldn't squeeze if you said, like, things were just, moving on their own. And he actually ended up having pneumonia and hospital infections, and then died from a heart failure. 6 weeks of being from start to finish in that hospital. And there's me always thinking, oh, well, he's going to come home, he's going to get better. And, the nurses would be like, Mrs. Bedi, your husband's very sick. Like, I think you need to kind of really understand that. And I was in so much denial that I was like, no, that's not, he's going to get better. He's going to get better. So I never really, I think people around me used to say, we knew, but we didn't want to say it to you because you would lose hope. And I was in that hospital every single day for 6 weeks, day and night. So it was really hard to come to terms with when, this actually did happen. And, we went in one day, and my mom was there too. And we were, I just kind of I said, I think there's something wrong today. He's not really, he's, breathing really funny. And so I said to the nurse, I said, he's not breathing right. And she said, well, I just changed him. He was fine. And then I said, no, yeah, I think you need to come and check. And then my mom said, why don't you just shave him and stuff? Because you do that and he starts to look fresh again. And
yeah.
And all of a sudden they said, code blue, code blue, code blue. And everyone went rushing in to his room and kicked us out. And then 5 minutes later, somebody came out. It was a nurse, and she said, do you know what he would have wanted? And I said, he wants to go home and be with his family. Like, that's what he wants. And she said, oh, well, we're trying to revive him. So we want to know whether we should continue. And I said, yeah, of course.
What's it called? DNR. But like people have DNR and then like do not resuscitate. And then obviously
we were so young, we didn't even think about those things. Like, I think a person came to our house a week before and said, do you want life insurance? He's like, yeah, we'll get it. We're only 30,
Wow.
And we didn't even bother because we were like, well, we've got all our whole lives to do all this stuff. And then when she came out and said, I'm sorry, there was nothing we could do, I can't even describe that time. Like my whole kind of world just, I think I was in shock for a start, and then felt like the whole floor had just kind of disappeared on me and I was going down this black hole. And I was just saying, what am I going to tell my kids? What am I going to tell my kids? And she was just like, look, do you want to go sit with him? And And I said, yeah, I do. And by this time, like now the whole family is finding out, and, everybody's coming to the hospital, and I'm just sitting beside him and telling him to wake up, just wake up, That turned into, I think that happened at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. The next thing I know, it was 5 o'clock. And my sister-in-law said, it's 5 o'clock. They want to take the body. And it just, everything just crumbled. Like I was in a whole different stance. Like I didn't even think everything around me was real. Then there was the coming home and telling my kids. And my daughter was 2, so she didn't even understand what was going on. My son was 5. And he kind of went, stop saying that he's not coming back. He's coming back. Stop saying that. I don't want people to say that. So I was trying to handle that, but also protecting them. I closed the door. I let everybody, Indian families, everybody's in the house now,
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be alone with my kids and just kind of get them through some of this initial part of it, at least. Right. So that kind of, I tried what I could and then kind of, put them to bed. And, there would still be times when my daughter would be like, every time the door went, it's like, oh, Papa, because she didn't know,
Yeah.
So that, I think, was the first time I realized that I've got so many different people to kind of comfort. But I got to, also try to go through this myself for myself.
Yeah.
And everybody kept saying, oh, you got to be strong for your kids. You got to be strong for your parents. You got to be strong for your in-laws. And I was like, who's being strong for me? Like, I'm also grieving, but I was, oh, don't cry. It's okay. Like, well, we're all here for you. Da, da, da. And I'm like, now if I hear somebody say, this is what's happened to me, I always say, go and cry and scream scream into a pillow or scream, and it doesn't matter. Get it out, because I started just putting it all internal. And someone at work said to me, you need to go see a counselor because you're not letting. I said, I can't. I've gone into robot mode. I've got to sort out the kids. I've got to, my dad was like, how are you going to spend the rest of your life just on your own, like with the kids? And I said, I'll be fine. I'm really fine. I don't need anybody. I'm going to work. I'm going to raise my kids.
So, we can talk about the first few days, which I'm going to assume were like, just you're in like you're not even in the world. Like you're just, right. You're in the twilight zone.
Yeah.
But when we get to like, the funeral's over, people have now left your house.
Yeah.
Right? Did your in-laws live with you?
Not at that time.
Okay, fine. So
not at the time.
When it's all, when the, like, I guess they say when the dust settles, so the dust is settled and people have gone home and now it's just you and your two children who are 5 and 2. What are you going through then when that happens, when the final person leaves, and now you're like, okay, this is my reality, me and these
Yeah.
two little humans that I have to take care of.
I think it was just, that's when it really hit me that this has happened, because now I'm on my own and he's not there. And it was actually nice having everybody here, because you kind of like, you would have conversations of, oh, let's talk about him, or let's, let me do your hair for you, or let me do something for you, like, and you had company.
Yeah.
But now knowing that this is it, this is the rest of my life, like, I was like, how am I going to get through the next 40 years on my own? Like, it was probably the first year was probably the slowest for a start, but also thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I think that's when that robot kicked in of, okay, I'll be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to work. I'm going to raise my kids. And still, like, I would have those breakdowns. Like, I'd find his perfume and that'll just start me off. But doing it, hiding in the bathroom and doing it,
So your kids don't see you cry?
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't want to scare them, or like they had their own anxieties. My son kind of went through shock, and then he kind of developed ADHD, from that, which was picked up by his grade 1 teacher. And then, trying to sort of keep some kind of normality where they wouldn't, feel that we're all in a dark hole. Like, so I started filling up my days, like, oh, let's put you in baseball. Oh, let's put you in violin. Oh, let's put you in swimming and this and that. We were pretty much out 7 days a week, because when I was alone, that was when I would think, and then I would cry, and then I would, and I did go walk into a counseling, a therapist office really early on in those days. And the entire time I just sat there and I cried. And those dreams that you have where you're crying, and you're trying to speak, but nothing comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my entire session. And she was asking me all these questions, and, I just cried, and I walked out and I never walked back in, because I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to tell anyone. I walked by a ringing phone and not picking it up, because I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear from people. I didn't want to hear, oh, we're so sorry. Oh, the same conversation over and over, and what happened. And, and I just didn't want to talk to anybody. So I would literally walk by the ringing phone and not pick it up. And people would be like, we're trying to call you. And I'm like, yeah, just leave me alone.
Wow.
I went into a dark hole and stayed there for a while.
How long did it take you, do you feel, to sort of, because grief never goes away, it evolves, right? It evolves over time. Like they say, time heals, but time doesn't really heal.
It just it teaches you how to learn how to sort of live with that pain.
Yeah.
That's all it does. It doesn't, it'll never go away for me.
How long do you think it was from the time he passed till you kind of felt like a little bit normalcy in yourself?
Oh, gosh.
Not in your life, but just in yourself, because you can do baseball and violin and karate and fill up your time and bring in healthy distractions for yourself and for your kids. And I think that's, like, for me personally, I thought that was like a really good move on your part, because that is good for your children. And it's probably good for you too, because you're forced to be social with people that don't really know you or your life.
Yeah. Right? I don't know if I could give it a time, but I know that the next time I walked into a counselor's office, it was 15 years later.
Wow.
During those 15 years, like, I started sort of making more friends, like actually more single friends, because the couple friends didn't want to hang out with me anymore. It was really weird.
That's awesome.
And I just kind of started, having a bit of a social life for myself, because that was my escape.
Right.
Between the baseballs and the, violins and the school concerts. And I was that mom that had like the most speeding tickets, because I would have to be at a school concert and a baseball game at the same time. And, if you can't if you say, oh, you go to one and you don't go to the other, then, well, you love her more than you love me, or that kind of stuff. So I had to be, I had so many police officers always like letting me off because they're like, okay, just get your kids there on time. Like, I think I don't know what normal is. I think it was a new normal for me. I have been a single parent for the last 17, 18 years, and that is my normal now. When did I feel? I don't think I ever did, but I did start to sort of live my life, knowing that that's a chapter of mine that's closed, but that never meant that we never talked about it. I mean, we're still, my kids will be like, oh, who was he more like, or who did he look like more, or we still have we have videos, we have pictures everywhere. We talk about it. We talk about him. We talk about his personality, and we laugh about stuff. So I've always been very open and communicative. I don't sit there and go, oh, we can't talk about him because he's not here anymore. Like we're not that family. But
it's more healthy to speak about it openly, right? Because you're like, if you can't even remember the happy times, and like, what's the point?
It's not fair on them not to be able to talk about it. And I always say to people, they've lost somebody different. I've lost somebody different, but it was the same person. And even I know what my in-laws went through. I mean, they lost their son. They lost their youngest child, their baby.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would say, I can't understand their grief because I still got my kids. And I would say to my mother-in-law, you can't understand mine because you still have your husband, but we're grieving the same person. But it doesn't mean that we're not there for each other. It's just, we're grieving two different people.
Yeah.
But they're the same person. So
it's this different, you're grieving that relationship.
So sometimes I can't feel her pain and she can't feel mine, but we can still feel each other's pain. So, and I still have my dad, but my kids don't. So they've never grown up knowing what a dad feels like to be in the house and wake up on a Sunday morning and do things, and
don't you feel like I mean, from what I know of you, and especially over the last year of getting to know you more, aside from my long distance sister-in-law, in the last year we've actually become friends. I feel, and I am actually good friends with your son as well. And so I feel like you've given them that Sunday morning of what it feels like having a dad in the house. And not to say that you have to do both mom and dad, but I feel like you consciously made an effort to be both mom and dad.
I think so too, but I still see the void when they talk sometimes, or when they look sometimes. And I've tried to be, both, and have those kind of conversations, but also not be like, I'm the woman, so I can't do these kind of things. But I would, I'll be fixing stuff and putting things together and teaching them, okay, this is how you put a table together or whatever. So, I've taken on those roles, but I feel that my son especially, sometimes that he will just say I look at other people, they're so close to their dad. I get really jealous sometimes. And that really, it breaks my heart, because I think, oh man, I really wanted him to have that, and not just him, but both of them. Sometimes that guidance is just maybe they would have turned out differently. I don't know. But I've done what I thought was the best way to do things, trying to sort of stay modern in that, sort of westernized, let's be communicative, let's talk about everything. Okay, you want to go out, it's fine. Just, I can track you on your phone. So I'm not worried.
That's how it works.
Thank God we didn't have FaceTime back then. So I'm not always worried. And I think, some people will say, oh, there's a fine line between giving too much freedom and giving, being a parent. But I think my way has worked for me.
I mean, I've met your kids. Like I just said, I'm good friends with your son, and I can truthfully say you've raised two amazing children.
They're good kids. They're respectful. They're very much very hardworking.
But they're just good people.
They are, they're loving, they're good. Yes, yeah,
Like
yeah.
to your point, they're respectful, but aside from ticking all those boxes, they're just two really good human beings.
Yeah, they are. They are. And I'm proud of that. Like I will, I know I say that to them all the time. Like I'm proud of what you're doing. And they're very ambitious. And I think and my son said to me, like, we get your drive from you. We've watched you your
Yeah.
whole life, like our whole lives, like just, going after that promotion or going after that job and trying to like hustle. And he's like, I have your hustle. And I'm like, I could see that. So and she's like, doing neuroscience at the University of Toronto. So like
You're like, where did you get
I'm
that
like,
from?
yeah, not my gene, whatever. But they've found their path with that guidance, and they're doing well for themselves. And I couldn't be prouder. I think like, it could have gone a really different way.
Yeah.
Where, kids start to rebel and, and they're just really like, sometimes I think they're kind of nerds because I was like, we used to sneak out of the house and go to a club and you guys
They don't have
like,
to sneak out because
no,
no one lets them out. They don't have to.
well, I was like, okay, get out of the house, and they were like, no, we're just gonna stay in. And, the other day I know that the boys had come over and they were playing Monopoly. And I'm like,
That's
what
so
the hell,
cute.
man? We used to be in the club. Like, so I
Yeah, but
guess,
Raman's work is also always partying, so I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
that's what.
yeah. So,
You
so
know,
I guess they get sick of it.
one of the things I think, from a cultural perspective is once you've kind of gone through this whole concept of like, okay, your husband's passed, there's some like unspoken cultural expectations, right?
Yeah.
Because your in-laws now also live in Canada. I'm
Yeah.
assuming quite local to you.
Yeah.
And you have this responsibility to this other, not other family, they're still your family, but this other side of your family.
Right.
And that connection, that link that was there is no longer there. How did you um, maintain that relationship and that core? Obviously, you have the shared grief and you have your kids who are their grandkids, but did you feel like you had an expectation to take care of your in-laws? Or did your relationship just continue? Like you're still the daughter of the house or daughter-in-law of the house? How was that for you?
I think that ours is not the typical family that, has and I've seen this with other friends of mine where, in-laws have decided, oh, well, it must have been your fault, so we're just going to cut you off.
Oh wow.
My in-laws are not like that. They treated me like a daughter. They did never said you're our daughter-in-law, like, especially after this happened. And I sort of thought to myself, they've just lost their son. I don't want them to lose their grandkids. And, people would say, why don't you come back to England? Come back to England. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that to them. Like, if they were horrible to me and mean to me, then maybe like, oh, well, fuck this. Like, I'm gonna leave. Right. They were not like that. They were always, we will never stop you, but we don't want you to go, so, and they always sort of, were like, we'll help you with the kids. You want to go and get your promotion. You need to travel for work. Don't worry about it. We've got them. My father-in-law was like, I dropped my kid to school one day after, I used to work downtown. So it was very hard for me to be able to drop them to school and then be downtown. So, my father-in-law used to, pack up their lunches in their bags, take them to school. So I did live with them for about 10 years after he passed.
Oh, okay, fine.
They'd moved to Canada at that point to help out because the kids were so small. And one day I went to school and everyone was like, "Who's that?" And they're like, "That's our mom." And they're like, "Oh, where's Grandpa?" And so they didn't even know who I was. Like,
That's so
everybody was
funny.
like, and somebody said, "Oh, is Grandpa not well?" And I'm like, "No, he's just like, I'm just home today." So I just, wanted to take my kids to school. They were like, "Oh, okay, is Grandpa?" Like everybody knew Raman's grandpa. Everybody
That's so
knew,
cute.
So he was always really good with them. Like he really took on a really good role. I mean, and my mother-in-law was always, I don't want you to wear white. I don't want you to feel that you have to, do, those kind
Traditional.
of traditional stuff that, back in the day where, you would have to, and I think I kind of started wanting to have somewhat of a social life too, because I was 30. I mean, I look at kids at 30 now and they're like, trying to get their career together, and nobody's had kids yet. And so I had lived an 80-year-old woman's life by the time I was 30. So really, I was still quite young. And my friends would go, oh, do you want to come out? Like, let's go. And so I slowly kind of said can I go? Like, is it okay? And, kind of being back in the day, and she was like, yeah, go. I've got the kids, don't worry. So she never used to say don't. Other people around us would say, oh, she goes out a lot,
Yeah, let's talk about other people, because I feel like, so your in-laws are, and I'm not going to say they're an anomaly, because my in-laws are just as cool, right? Like you know them, and people are surprised that I live with my in-laws, but I'm like, they're freaking cool. Like,
right? I don't want an issue with them. Yeah, like
I don't have to cook, like whatever. But it's these other people in society, in the extended family, in the extended community, that always have a problem with anything that anybody ever does.
Oh, of course. You could be the perfect law-abiding citizen, and somebody's still going to talk about you about something, right?
Like you chew your gum wrong or something.
Yeah.
How was it carrying that cultural pressure? Because you're also in Canada, which is like a heavy Punjabi area, specifically where you live, is a heavy Punjabi traditional. It's like basically a mini Punjab.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And
oh
so
gosh.
those backward cultural, what we call backwards cultural norms exist there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because we were sort of second generation, I guess, in the UK. These guys are just like sort of, I mean, a lot of my kids' moms and dads are just straight from India, so
their mindset is different, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How are you navigating the pressure of these outside beings going, and it's very easy for one auntie to say to your mother-in-law, why is she going out? How are you letting her going out? And how do you deal with that? I know you're like I don't give a fuck kind of person, but
got there in the end. Yeah.
But in the
I'll tell you about that.
Yeah. In the beginning, you weren't so much.
No, right? I wasn't.
You were careful.
I was. And then I think a lot of things at that time used to bother me. And so I think, okay, first of all, obviously, and I think that this is different for different people, but when I get depressed and I get down, I start losing weight. And, I was 30 at the time and my metabolism was fantastic. And, I think, first few months, I was just like, I think within the first year, I lost like 40 pounds.
Wow.
I was just depressed. I was not eating right. I was, and obviously being that young, it was, faster metabolism. And I started looking better. So I kind of changed my wardrobe. And I think it was just to make myself feel better. So, dressing a bit more trendy and cutting my hair and, and then that was the first sort of, oh, she's dressing differently and she's going out more and she's, cutting her hair and da 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 da. And I think my mother-in-law was kind of a layer of protection. She was just like, leave her alone. She's fine. Like, sometimes there was that, do you have to go out or, blah, blah, blah. But I always used to be like, feed the kids, put them in their pajamas, make sure they're getting to bed, and then have my time. So I wasn't always sort of going, hey, I'm going out, here's my kids, bye.
Yeah, that wasn't about it.
I was never irresponsible. Like if they had a baseball thing, I'd take them, get them into bed, da, 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 da. So they didn't have to do as much, just be there to watch them, right? So we were both pretty flexible with each other. And then I know they had wanted their alone time too, and they would want to go out. So we would kind of, have a schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, oh, well, what does that mean? And even, there would be family members who would say, oh, well, is she seeing somebody or is she,
wow.
And it was just like, guys, like, how many people do I have to say that I just need a break? Like, I want a little bit of time for myself and, just
adult interaction with other women your age.
That's not work or,
that's just a friend, having a coffee with a friend, a drink with a friend or whatever.
Yeah. And things just to, seriously build up for me. And I started like getting really anxiety about it and like sort of hide it then and go, okay, well, now it's a work thing or something like that, just because I didn't want to hear it anymore. And then, so I just slowly started thinking, I'm never going to be sort of broken from this. Like I have to sort of, and like I said, I'm a mix of, Indian and Western, I still used to go to the Gurdwara. I used to still, I mean, I did lose my faith for a little bit and then I kind of came back to that. But, going to family functions, making sure that, if I would do Christmas at mine, I would do Thanksgivings, like even though it was just me, I would still do it because I wanted it for my kids and we had a really nice, we have a nice sort of community of family like around, but it was just like, okay, how much of this is going to need to keep continuing to affect me? I either have to break free from that or I have to, I'll just be living my life for other people my whole life. So I started just to stop caring and now I'm to it. And I think walking into that counselor's office 15 years later and she said to me, whatever's not good for your mental health, walk away from it.
Okay.
So
sound advice.
Oh, it's excellent. And then I had just seen this meme and it said, whatever's good for your soul, do that. And I was like, I had it as a display picture for so long because I was like, this is exactly how I need to live my life. So I started kind of, pulling back a little bit. And I still hear she doesn't come to as many things and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to come to whatever suits me.
Yeah.
Exactly. If it's not feasible, then I'm not going to go.
Yeah. That's fair.
But I'm still respectful. I'm still sort of, making sure that, if there's something happening, I'm going to do my best. But if it means that it's a toss between dropping my kid off back to college versus going to somebody's bar, I'm going to choose my kid. Right? 100%. Maybe I'll make it thereafter or I'll apologize for not, but I'm not going to care that, somebody said you weren't there or, I've gone past it. I had to, because otherwise I think my kids will just be like always thinking this is what we should be doing as well.
We always have to show up for other people.
Yeah. And they said to me that not everybody shows up for us. So, when I've moved my kid to university, I did it myself. Like I rented a truck, got put things like fridges on it,
Oh my God, yeah.
Never sort of said, hey, I need help. Somebody help me. No. I mean, even if I had, I don't think people don't have time. They've got their own lives. So
yeah. You can't carry expectations.
Right? Never.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to be because it gives you more independence. It gives you more sound sort of peace within you. Just not to have expectations. And if somebody's there, it's a bonus. If not, then it's okay.
Did you ever feel the pressure to get remarried?
Yes and no. So I think from my mother-in-law always said to me, like, whenever you are ready and you want to do that, I will help you. I will be there to do that. And but there's also the proudness I think she sort of feels when she says to people, she never remarried. So I don't know, there's a mixed signal there. Like I'm sure if I came up and said, hey, this is somebody I want to marry, she's gonna be there for me.
Of course.
I don't know how much of it is I really want you to do this, but I think my parents more so find somebody. You don't want to be on your own for the rest of your life. What's going to happen when your kids are grown up? And now I feel more of an empty nester now because she's at university, he's out with his work. And sometimes I have to text them to say, do you guys want dinner? Or are we having dinner together? So it's like I've got more time on my hands now. But for me, I wanted to have them settled first. And it wasn't about who wanted what and you should do this and you should do that. It was just, I want to make sure that they're okay, they're settled, and then maybe think about myself in that sense. Yeah. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. It just was, it's just panned out that way, I guess. I was always scared if I brought somebody else into this, environment and then they didn't get on with my kids or my kids didn't like them, or how am I going to incorporate them into my entire in-law family? I mean, I'm sure they'll be welcoming, but it was just, I felt awkward. So I didn't.
Like going back to your mother-in-law, you know, the whole is kind of being almost proud that you didn't remarry. It's probably more appreciation that you stuck around to take care, like to take care of them and take care
Oh
of
yeah.
them emotionally.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, and I'm just speculating. Obviously, Auntie will have to say it for herself, but there's also that fear that she would lose you to that to whoever
Yeah.
comes through, and then you're somebody else's daughter-in-law, and then you're like, oh man, I just lost my daughter to some other
Yeah,
family.
I
Or,
agree. I agree. And I know she always says like, you're my best friend. And I
oh,
said that
that's
to
so
her
sweet.
too. So I know that she has that love for me, that but she also wants the best for me. But yeah, I think there is that sort of I'll lose her, or and she did say to me one time, she's like, well, that person will be your husband, so he's gonna come number one. So
Oh,
maybe there is that kind of thing
yeah.
deep down going, oh, I'm gonna like lose that. Um, she I don't think she would object to it. She's never said that, or she's never sort of but I think there's that fear a little bit, like, what about the
It's like the
kids?
yeah, but it's also like the how our moms felt when we got married.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
gonna lose that, you
yeah,
know, you go to your house, whatever the thing is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's probably the same sort of because you've evolved from daughter-in-law to daughter very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And I was lucky. I was lucky because I've got, like I said, I've got friends who this happened to, and their mother-in-laws don't speak to them,
Oh,
or
that's so sad.
even cut off their own grandkids. And I thought, how do you do that? Like, you know, my mother-in-law thinks she birthed my son. Like she's so close to my
Yeah.
kids. Like, so I think I was lucky in that sense. So my story, might be very different for somebody else because it might have been a different relationship or
Right.
situation or personality of those other
Of
people.
course.
But I was lucky in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I still have that respect for them. I still have that fear of, oh, I don't want to say or do anything wrong because I don't want them to be upset with me or hurt them in any way. Um, and I think that just comes with the upbringing. My parents were always like, "Oh, you have to respect your elders," and I remember my mum saying when we got married, like, um, "She's your mum now, so whatever it is, tell her. I don't want to know about it."
Oh wow.
Because and any time I would even sort of complain about something, she'd be like, "No, I'm hearing it here, and it's coming out there. She's your mum. Go and tell her. Go and
Oh,
speak to her. I'm not getting involved." And I think it was the best thing she did for me because some mums don't do that, and it
they can
turns
easily fill your ear with maybe
and
what's not correct.
influence.
Yeah, and
But
not correct
my
influence.
mum would never do that. So and even if my mother-in-law said to my mum, oh, da da da, she's like, well, she's your daughter, sort it out. I'm not getting involved. So
Wow.
um I think we were kind of, forced to communicate with each other, and it was easy because she's so understanding and easygoing.
Yeah.
So even if we yell at each other, 5 minutes later, we're fine. It's okay, whatever, move on. Let's like,
Yeah.
she's never one of those that kind of sticks to like, okay, tika, like, she'll just be like, tika, koiri. And my father-in-law is like he's always been a very, whatever you say, it's okay, you know, and, he's never sort of been that guy though, where like, this is how you should be and this is how you should act. And he's just so easygoing,
Yeah.
so I was lucky in that way, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, not everybody lucks out like this. I
No,
mean, especially in our
no.
culture, and we've seen, like you're saying, you've seen friends who've been cut off, and I think we've just seen general stories within our own extended communities of
Yeah,
when something like this happens, the relationship, for whatever reason, becomes severed.
yeah,
And I never really understood that because it's like, but wait a second, and you said this before, like we're both grieving the same person,
yeah,
different versions of that person,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
the same person. Why are you not understanding what I'm going through, right? Like how does that do,
I gave the same advice to a friend of mine. I said, you can't feel your mother-in-law's pain and she can't feel yours. She's still got her husband, you've still got your kids. So, you know, don't try to put anything, like you're grieving the same person, but you're not grieving the same person. And that was, and she always says that to me now. She says, that was the best piece of advice you gave me. Because, it is hard for you. I mean, I can't even really fathom, like, they lost their youngest child. And that's brought on like, different health issues, different like mental health issues and that kind of stuff. And they've been different the last 18 years too. It's not just me. So I kind of have to be understanding of that too, So I think, and then she always says that you guys fill that void for us because you're around and you're, the strength that we see in you is keeping us alive. So, I feel that we as, as children or younger generation just have to really sort of be understanding of that, that generation and the way that they think and the way that they feel. It doesn't always have to be a fight. You can just kind of sort of say, look, can you give me a little bit more freedom? And then I want to also understand, like, if I was just like, no, it's all about me and it's all about my pain, I don't want to listen to what's going on with you guys, then we would have had a very different relationship. It takes two to make that relationship. And I think people stop making an effort because the hate kicks in. And I didn't want to do that to them. And I didn't want my kids to think that's okay. It's not, right? Because tomorrow they're going to get married and maybe, their wife or husband might not like me. So I want them to see, my mom's always made an effort with everybody and, her own side and her in-law side. So make sure that we kind of, do the same when it's our time as well. So it's everything you teach them is when they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, it's very true. Yeah. They're maps of who we are.
Yeah. I think a lot of the parenting books are like children mirror what they see. Yeah. Blah, blah. So my kids are going to see somebody who's on their phone a lot.
We didn't have that problem at that age, right?
Something you just said just now was, your mother-in-law saw your in-laws see your strength and they said that's what, have kept them going. If you go back 18 years and you're 30 years old, did you even know you were this strong? Did you even know you were a strong person? Because you have to be like mentally strong, emotionally strong, and then as a mother strong. There's so many variations of strength. But did you know?
I think that people saw a strength on the outside but on the inside I was dying. And what they don't. So my friend said to me one time, she's like, how do you get your stuff out? Like, I said, I'm the worst person to talk to about that because I bottle everything in and I keep going and going and going until I go, boom.
What does your boom look like?
Boom is yelling or fighting about something that's so insignificant because all of it kind of built up over time. And then I don't know how to get it all out. So I argue about something that's not even worth arguing about. So I think that what may have looked like strength at that time was more, I'm going to pretend this is not happening and go into robot mode. Like I said, like I went back to work after 3 weeks. I put my kids in every single social after school thing that I could so that I didn't have to be alone with my thoughts. Let's go on holiday. Even if I didn't have the money, I would still do it because it was like, okay, well, we're only going to live once. We'll make the money back, probably a little bit irresponsible, but so I don't know if it was strength or if it was just, let me just deal with this later. I don't want to deal with it. I want to pretend it's not happening.
Are you better about your mental health now in terms of like, I know you said you guys openly talk in your house, but just you in like with counseling, do you recommend it?
Yes. I recommend it with the right person. And I think I did trial and error with a couple of people that didn't really work for me.
Right.
But there was this one that was, she made me go in and feel my pain and actually.
Can you elaborate on that?
So she would say, let's talk to this feeling, let's give it a color, let's give it a name. And I would say, okay, this is my anxiety and this is where it's coming from and this is how I'm feeling and this is, and she's like, okay. And then she backtracked and said, where are you when this pain started? And I said, in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know I could get there. She got me there. Um, so I think if I tell people, I would say find the right counselor or the right therapist for you and go and talk out your feelings, because I wasn't doing that. I was just, do you know what, robot? I'm not going to talk about things. I'm not going to pick up the phone. I'm not going to talk to people. I'm going to just, it's my kids, it's me, it's my work. Da, 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 da. And, on the plus side, my career just boomed. Maybe it was because I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about what's the best thing I can do now. Okay, now what I'm going to do. Now what I'm going to do. So, I opened up my own business. I went really focused on different areas so I couldn't focus on what was going on inside me, which is probably the worst thing to do.
It's so funny you said this. So Jamie, who I did the previous podcast with, my ex PT, we were talking about some of the life events he went through when he was like 19, 20. And he goes, yeah, I just put my head deep down into my work and like, that's it. And then he was like, and he had a moment of reflection as we were speaking. He's like, yeah, that's probably not the best thing to do, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I am the worst person to say, I used to go brush it under the carpet and move on, like what's next. So, and I don't know if that's just who I am as a person or my personality, but um, I didn't talk about things enough. I didn't talk about me and my feelings enough. I talked about, oh, how are my kids feeling, or how's somebody else feeling, or comforting other people and trying to be there for everybody else. And just brushed what I was going through.
But were you using that were you doing that in like almost subconsciously, but also intentionally? So you
Probably
didn't have to deal with your emotions? Like,
yeah,
let me
probably.
be strong for everybody else.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to be strong and tell somebody it's okay. But you can't tell yourself that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why this therapist said that because you haven't grieved your husband. You haven't felt the pain because you've busied your life so much for other things that it doesn't give you time to actually reflect on what happened. She made me feel that pain. She made me, like I said, give it a name, give it a color. What does it look like? What is it? And she said, let's talk to it. Oh. So we talked to it, and I let out so many different, like I was crying, I was talking, I was yelling, I was angry, I was, upset, but also just trying to, and just to feel it. I had to feel it because I was trying not to feel it, because I thought if my life stops right now and I have to feel what happened and feel that loneliness, I don't know what, I probably have a breakdown. And I can't have a breakdown because I got to raise my kids.
Oh God, yeah.
So
it took you. So when you were telling your story in the beginning, and you said we never really had that final conversation, and then it took you 15 years to understand the pain. Right, you felt the pain, but you didn't understand the pain. Yeah. Do you feel now that you might have some closure?
Yeah, a little bit.
Acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, I still would love to kind of have the last conversation with him. It always lingers with me, I guess. But I've become more of like accepting it, understanding it, feeling it. And that's why with my kids now, I say to them, don't bottle things up. Feel what it is. Feel the breakup or feel the, upset about somebody else or whatever. And then just once you've felt it, then that's where you can start moving on from it, right? I never did that. And so, I said to this counselor, I said, it's taken me 15 years to get here. And she goes, well, it could have taken you another 15. So be proud of yourself that you're here. And I said, okay. So that's when we started working on stuff. And I think that helped me sort of open up myself a little bit more and go, okay, now I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. Now I'm sort of going, okay, I've got to a point where I've accepted what's happened. I've felt it. I've kind of, I'm not isolated, but I've kind of removed myself from situations that are negative or negative talking about me. And kind of sort of, I feel more free and I feel more at peace and I feel more relaxed. And I think that's showing in my face now or my, subconscious and my being. And I think that also has made me a better person with other relationships and, friends, cousins, whatever. Like, because it's just I've got to a point where I was like, okay, you know what? I don't even care anymore. Or whatever, it's fine. Like if I want to go to something, I'll go to something and I'll have a great time and I'll never sort of, I'll always be like happy. I'm always a smiley, happy person anyway. But I don't want to feel upset or anxiety about somebody talking about something or whatever. And like I said, it was, why is she dressing better? Why is she cutting her hair? Or why? And it probably was just because I wanted to feel better about myself and just kind of, not feel what's happened and just kind of, get to socialize outside of my, work and kids and baseball and this and that. Yeah. And so it was really hard to sort of go, why do people not understand that?
I also think like something so trivial, like just getting a haircut is, firstly, it's stupid that anybody would judge you. But I would say sometimes these really small things can just make you feel so much better. Like, when my brother passed, I remember Impy, who's your cousin, also my other sister-in-law, was like, let's just go get our nails done.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to go get them. She was like, no, let's all go. My mother-in-law, Cam, our other relative, Imps, me, we went down the street from my old house and we got our nails done.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I didn't necessarily want to participate in this.
Oh, I agree. I know.
But then I got it and I was like, for 30 minutes, I didn't think about what I was constantly thinking about. I wasn't thinking about my grief. For those 30 minutes, I sat there getting my nails done. It was the best distraction. And now my nails are done. And actually, I feel a little bit, not better about the whole situation, but just better for a few minutes.
Yeah, right? I get that.
And so like doing something like taking a shower and getting dressed up and getting a haircut or just doing your hair, putting on some makeup, those are such small things, but they can really change how you feel just for that small moment of time.
I think that I agree completely. And the thing is that because we're human, we do kind of, feel anxiety if somebody says anything negative, right? Like, and I remember the first time, so, we'd had people at our house, the funeral, everything, da, da, da. And one day my sister-in-law said, let's just take the kids to the park. Just get them out of the house. Like and it was probably a month after he had passed and people, there were still people still there, but not like, she was just like, let's get them out of the house. So we went to the park, the swings, the slides, like whatever. And they're having a really good time. And like, remember they were 5 and 2, they were so little, like, and I just wanted that day to be a nice day for them. And I was laughing with them and like, putting them on the roundy thing and like whatever. And somebody from my work was at the same park. I didn't even see him. I didn't even acknowledge him. I didn't even know he was there. He didn't come up to me. And it wasn't somebody who I was close with at work. It was just somebody who worked in a different department.
Okay.
And he went back to my colleagues at work and go, oh yeah, she's fine. She was laughing. And I thought, what a piece of shit.
That is
like
a very piece of shit.
My entire world has gone upside down. I've been crying. I've been like not sleeping and da, da, da. And I have that one moment of laughter with my kids. And it just, my anxiety went through the roof. Because my colleague, and I said to my colleague, I said, and she goes, look, don't even stress about it. He's nobody. If you went out with your kids to the park, it's not like, it's just a normal thing for you to do. Like, and if you laughed, it's okay. Like, and I was like, oh my God, am I being judged for laughing? Am I being judged for?
Did it make you feel guilty for laughing?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
being happy for 1 minute?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then were you conscious of that every
Yeah.
time you were happy?
Yeah. It gave me major anxiety.
Did you just
yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, like, what do you think? Do you just think like, fuck, I just can never be happy ever again?
Or I can never laugh. Yeah. I don't know. It's society that makes you like, all I was doing was taking my kids out to the park for the afternoon. It wasn't even like I was in a club and like, partying it up on the dance floor. It was the park, for God's sake. But
then it makes you feel that like that's happening when you're 30. It's like fresh. And you're thinking you could fast forward and be like, shit, when I'm 40 and could I actually have fun in a club? Like, is that ever going to happen for me again?
I think that people are going to judge you even if you were the perfect person and grieved perfectly in front of the world and did the perfect thing, and somebody's always going to find something to talk about. And if I could go back and tell my 30-year-old self, like, don't give a shit about other people and other people's opinions. Do what is good for you. But because I wasn't mature then. I was like I got married at 23. I didn't even know. Listen, I didn't even know what labor pains felt like. My mom never. I was like, I'm getting this period pain, and it comes and goes. And like, yeah, dude, you're in period, on your own labor. So it was like I was young, I was naive, I was worried about everything and worried about what everybody's going to say and do and da da da. And this person at work made me feel like shit for having an afternoon with my kids at the park. And I thought, oh my God, do I have to go into work and just be like, I was so nervous for my first day back at work. Thinking, oh my God, what are people going to say to me? Or I don't want people to talk to me. And and there was people that were avoiding me because they were like, we didn't know what to say.
Fair.
And
people don't know how to react. Like, I'm one of those people. I'm so bad at giving condolences. I don't know.
What do you?
I know what the fuck to say to anybody. Like, I'm like, and that, having gone through so much trauma myself and all the losses that I've had, I still don't know how to, because it's such a difficult moment, and nothing you say to anybody is going to make them feel better. Nothing's going to add value.
It's such a uniform, like,
I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, okay, thank you. Like, what are you supposed to even say? Are you supposed to say thank you? Because people still say it to me, like, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm like, thank you. Like, is that the normal response? I don't even know. Like, I'm like, okay, thanks. Or do I say, okay, yeah, cheers? Or, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. I just say thank you now. I've just kind of become
what else can you say?
A robot.
One of my questions to you was, what do you go back to 30-year-old Meeta and tell her? And you very clearly explained you would tell her, like, live for yourself, don't give a shit about what other people have to say.
No, don't do it. And cry. Make sure you cry. Make sure you scream, and don't keep it in. Don't listen to, oh, you have to be strong. You have to be strong for everybody. And like, I think that's the worst piece of advice anybody can give anybody. Don't be strong. You can feel it. Let yourself feel the pain and let yourself grieve the pain, because that was my biggest mistake. And it built up and built up and built up. And I wish somebody had just said to me, cry and scream and do whatever it takes to get that feeling out, because that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're bottling things in, it's bad for you. It's bad for your physical and mental health. Like, it's, like I said, I was thinner than when I got married.
Wow.
And I mean, you as lose weight for your wedding day and you want to look, perfect and whatever. But I was like, I was fitting into like extra small. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I need to start eating better or,
Just start eating
otherwise
in
I'm not going to
general.
be.
You probably just didn't
Exactly.
eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could have looked better, but, great metabolism at the time. But I just, I think that's what I should have done. And I wish I had. And I wish somebody had told me that at that time.
I know that you have something to do shortly, and I don't want to keep you much longer, but one of the things that stuck with me in this conversation is you not being able to have that final conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ask you what would you say, what would you have said, because I that's so personal to you. But what do you do now? Are there things you do now, maybe little rituals that you do now to honor Baba, like honor his memory?
I mean,
I
we
know,
always do.
I know,
Yeah.
sorry, I know you post like on Instagram, and I've seen them on your anniversaries, on his birthdays. I know Remit also posts, and but
We
aside
do
from,
dinner. The kids and I will go out for dinner and stuff. We'll still do those kind of
do you
things. But
celebrate the day?
the day of, I kind of go into my own, like, I I don't want to talk to anyone.
Fine,
Without go
fair.
into
No, no, no.
my
I
own
meant, I
little.
meant, I meant like his birthday and stuff, but
Oh
not
yeah,
the,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
not
his birthday
the
stuff.
anniversary.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We'll go out for dinner. We'll do things like the kids and I will do it. My in-laws will sometimes join and that kind of stuff. But um, the day that it happened, I kind of just go into sort of like hibernation mode, and I don't
Fair.
want people to reach out to me, and I don't want, but, and it, it is what it is. But I think the first many years, and I still think this sometimes, is that, when I die, I want him there waiting for me because he was the love of my life and he always will be.
That's so sweet.
Um, but I can't, and I think that made time go slower for me because I was like, okay, well, when am I going to die? Is it going to be 40 years? Is it going to
Oh
be 50
wow.
years? And I got to stop living like that. Like, if he's there, then it's meant to be. If he's not, then, and that's come from a lot of counseling. If he's not, then that's okay too. But, I always, will feel that he was my soulmate. And I wish that we have another lifetime together. I don't know. But, it was sad that our love story got cut short and we weren't able to grow old together, and you know he was somebody I could tell, like, we could finish each other's sentences. We never went to bed angry with each other. We always kind of talk things out. And um I don't think that soul connection um is any, I mean, not a lot of people get to experience that, and I'm just grateful that I had those few years with him to do that. But I don't know what I would say to him now. Maybe at that time I'd be like, oh, but I was also, it was also 18 years ago and I was a lot immature. But if I had that moment now, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things I would want to say. I think maybe mainly about the kids, or I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Like I know how difficult it is to talk about loss, and I appreciate you so much for telling us your story, and taking us through your journey of grief, but also just the evolve. I hate that word grief actually, but just the evolution of your life story, and when we spoke yesterday, I was saying like your life is probably broken down, and somebody said this to me when my brother passed away. You have life with that person, and then that's one chapter, and then your timeline is like life with that person, and then the next line in that timeline is life after that person, and that's how you kind of break up your life. But
Yeah.
I feel like you've done, and I'm nobody to give judgment, but I've seen you very, especially recently, and how you are as a mom. And again, I can say you've done fantastic with your kids, and nobody could ever
Thank
fault you
you.
for that. But I see you as a woman, um, and you're so graceful in how you've dealt with all of this, especially because you're only 30. And when I think about when I was 30, I was so dumb.
I think
You
I was
know,
dumb too, but I
no,
think
but you are.
strength finds you somehow. And, and I think that humans are so adaptive to their environment or adaptive to their situation, and they kind of have to find a way to live again and, find, like I said, find a new normal. And that's what we did. And I didn't realize that, the strength that you have until you have to actually do it, right? There's moments in life where I'll go, oh, like I wish like I could talk to his dad about this or her dad about this, and let him make a decision on this one, and because they come up with their own problems, right? So I think my hardest piece of life is not having that other parent to consolidate or just communicate with. And what do we do in this situation, or what do I say in this situation? So you're always doubting whether you're doing the right thing or saying the right thing or letting them do the right thing. But you got to give them time as well, because they've also been through that grief. But they, like, my kids are really understanding. They're always just like, Mom, just move on with your life, like find somebody and that kind of stuff. And we're going to be grown up and we're going to be out of the house, and so like they're good kids. They're not assholes.
No,
like
kids.
But and they're very understanding, and they're very protective of me. So maybe I'm gonna one day let them take care of me and let them be the strength in the family, and I can take a step back and not have to do that anymore, right? Like I said, as humans, we take over because we have to find that strength, and we have to find a way to sort of live again. And that's what we did, just, as a whole family, and as the three of us as well.
The three of you did it really well. And I think a lot of people could learn from you guys. But yeah, do you want to do a message for the world? Completely up to you. If you want to give people a word of advice, whatever you want, however you want to wrap this up.
Yeah, just, whatever's good for your soul, do that.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe.
Werewolves and rituals, wild and untamed. Stories unscripted, no rules to the game. The fire burns brighter when nothing's the same. Rebels and rituals.